I'm outdoorsy in that I like drinking on patios. Just kidding, kind of. I do like having a drink on a patio, but I also enjoy getting outdoors with my kids, but I wouldn't necessarily consider myself outdoorsy, and maybe you feel the same way. So when it comes to things like camping, hiking, or just generally being out in the wilderness, I sometimes feel like I'm out of my element. If you feel the same way, never fear. Today I'm going to share with you my top tips for beginners for going camping with their family. What's up, guys? It's Emily from A Mom Explores, and I'm a mom of 4 little kids, 7, 5, 3, and 6 months. I love to share about traveling with little kids and how to make it easier and more attainable for the average parent. I wouldn't say we're expert campers by any means, but we do enjoy getting out and camping once a year with our kids, and I have fond memories of camping with my family as a child. So in the past few years, we've done cabin camping, tent camping in a state park, tent camping at a campsite, like a campground with all the amenities. So today I want to share with you our top tips for beginners, kind of like us, for enjoying camping with kids, even if you feel like a newbie or you're a little bit intimidated by it. My first tip is going to be pick a shelter that's going to be comfortable for your whole family. If you're really new and you're just not comfortable setting up a tent or sleeping overnight in a tent, start with a cabin. Most campsites offer different levels of cabins, some with amenities like restrooms and kitchens, and others that are very rustic that don't even have a restroom. They just simply offer shelter with a bed where you can feel more comfortable sleeping. We stayed at this beautiful cabin at the KOA in St. Augustine, Florida, and the kids had a blast sleeping in the bunk beds and making a little fort in their own tiny room. We loved having a restroom because we had a toddler at the time, and little kids who had to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, so it was more comfortable for us to be able to take them to the bathroom right inside of our cabin. We also loved having the separate rooms so we could put our toddler down for the night and then head back outside for a campfire to roast marshmallows and just generally be able to talk to each other and not worry about waking up the toddler. This year we went tent camping with all 4 kids. So they were 7, 5, 3, and we had a 4-month-old at the time, and she did a great job. We put her in the pack and play inside the tent, turned on the sound machine, and then just generally lowered our voices a little bit. We weren't like whispering or anything like that, and she did great sleeping in the tent. So I would say if you have a baby, when they're still younger and sleeping a lot, that's a great time to go. If you don't have your own tent and you're still pretty new to camping, you may want to start by borrowing someone else's tent to see if you even like tent camping. If you're ready to buy a tent, make sure you choose one with plenty of room. We have a Kelty Sequoia 6-person tent, and I absolutely love it. It feels so roomy. However, with a pack and play setup in there, it did feel a little bit crunched. When the baby's old enough to be out of the pack and play, I'm sure it's going to be the perfect size for our whole family. Oh, and don't forget to get comfortable setting up your tent before you go. The last thing you want is the stress of showing up to your campsite. The kids are itching to get out of the car and run around, but you and your partner are trying to set up the campsite and you're stressed because you don't know how it goes. Watch YouTube videos, set it up in your backyard or at home somewhere. Have a practice day camping in your backyard or even in your living room if your tent fits in there. Just make sure you're comfortable with your tent before you go. Finally, another option is to rent an RV just for your camping trip. You can go to sites like RV Share, Outdoorsy, and Cruise America, where you can find campers of all different sizes and with all different amenities that you can just rent for the duration of your camping trip. Tip number 2 is to make sure you have comfortable sleeping accommodations, especially if you're tent camping. We made this mistake the first time when we went camping at Devil's Lake State Park in Wisconsin. My husband and I didn't have any sort of padding underneath our sleeping bags, and our campsite was angled and there were rocks underneath our tent, and it was the longest night. We were so cold even though it was in the middle of summer. It was just a rough experience. So this time we made sure to order some sleeping pads. They were self-inflating, they were super easy to set up, and we put them underneath our sleeping bags. And it was a great night of sleep. I felt so much better. Listen, we're in our 30s now. We're not young and spry like we used to be. It's really important for us to get a good night's sleep. So we were really happy with these ones. I'll link the ones we used below. They're actually very affordable on Amazon. So go ahead and check those out if you're preparing for your camping trip. And then instead of investing in all kinds of sleeping bags for our kids, we actually just brought along a bunch of extra comforters that we had at our house, and you could borrow some from family or friends nearby if you don't feel like you have enough to bring along. We brought a few sheets and a few pillows, and yeah, they took up some extra space in our van on the way up there, but it was really nice. We just spread them all out and the kids snuggled up with us at night, and it worked perfectly. Tip number 3 is to decide which optional extras you want to borrow or invest in to make your trip a little bit more comfortable. I would definitely suggest bringing a tarp to go underneath your tent to help protect it from rocks, or to make sure the ground of your tent stays dry in case it rains. So definitely bring a tarp along. If you bring one that's large enough, you can also extend it in front of your tent and use it as a great place for kids to leave their shoes. We also set our baby there with her outdoor bouncer, so she was a little bit protected from the rocks underneath too. Another additional thing that we brought that I don't think was necessary, but we enjoyed having, was a canopy. We loved setting this up over our picnic table that was provided at the campsite, and it was an awesome place to sit and eat our meals if it was really sunny out, which our campground never got that sunny, but some do. And it was also a wonderful place to shelter from the rain. And whenever we were leaving our campsite for the day, we would put all of our important things under the canopy just to make sure that they didn't get wet in case it did rain. Number 4 is to over-prepare when it comes to food and eating and cooking supplies. You don't want to be caught at your campsite, possibly far away from civilization or stores, without enough food or without the proper supplies you need to make your meals. Be sure to meal plan. Make sure you know exactly what you're going to be making for each meal for each day of your camping trip. And if you end up with extras, that's wonderful, but it's better than the opposite of running out of food before your camping trip is done. We chose really easy meals like grilled cheese made in one of those square pie irons that you can hold over the fire. We also cooked up some taco meat ahead of time and made walking tacos in individual Dorito bags. We also went with the classic hot dogs, and you could also do hamburgers, which would make a really simple, fun meal that you know everyone in your family is going to like. For lunches, we simply brought along bread, peanut butter, jelly, tons of fruit that we had cut up ahead of time. Same thing for vegetables. We brought things like granola bars and crackers, all individually packaged, which we don't normally buy, but it made it so much easier on the camping trip to have individually packaged snacks. For breakfasts, we just brought cereal and milk. We kept the cooler filled with ice at all times. At our campground, you could just buy ice, so we kept filling up our cooler, and it kept everything perfectly cold that we needed to keep chilled. Do not, I repeat, do not forget about the s'mores. Your kids will never forgive you. I loved setting up the little Tupperware box as a little s'more kit to make everything smoother, because when you're camping with 4 little kids and everyone's grabbing for marshmallows and graham crackers, it's nice to have it organized so you don't have to keep opening up packages and worrying about stuff falling everywhere. You really don't need a ton of cooking supplies if you're doing pretty easy meals. I would recommend buying or borrowing those square pie irons to bring on the trip. We just borrowed ours. You also want a skillet that can go on the campfire, a kettle, or some sort of coffee maker, and then sticks for grilling hot dogs and marshmallows for your s'mores. Tip number 5 is to come prepared with a plan for your coffee. It took a surprising amount of research to figure out how we were going to make our coffee. We finally ended up settling on a percolator that we could just stick right over the campfire on one of those grills. And you could see when the coffee started to bubble up, when it turned brown, it was ready to go. And it turned out actually really tasty. Now, I like a little coffee with my creamer, so I like really sweet coffee. So I made sure to just bring creamer along and put it in my cooler. Simple as that. But if you're kind of doing a little bit more remote camping or you don't have as much room in your cooler, I would recommend getting those individual cups that don't have to be refrigerated for creamer. That would work just as well. We bought a set of this blue enamel camping cookware. It's really classic. I mean, you might remember it from like the 90s. We bought a set off Facebook Marketplace for $6. So really you don't need to spend a ton of money on cook supplies for camping. Look on Facebook Marketplace or just borrow them from friends, especially if this is your first time going camping. Tip number 6 is don't forget about doing the dishes. We made sure to bring along 2 wash basins that we actually had on hand, but I think you can find similar ones at the dollar store or around $1 at Walmart or Target. And we would fill one with soapy water and one with just regular water. And we brought one of those dish wands from the dollar store, so we didn't have to also bring along the dish soap. And we gave each kid one turn doing the dishes as a chore, and they actually had so much fun. We booked a campsite that provided running water and electricity, so we didn't have to go anywhere to fill up our basins with water to wash the dishes. But most campsites provide a spot where you can go fill up on water if you need to do that. Otherwise, just bring big jugs of water with you and fill them up as you go. Tip number 7 is to set up a place where you can hang up clothes, towels, and anything else that needs to dry. I would highly recommend bringing larger size clothespins because they're going to be able to hold heavier things like towels. We hung our clothesline across the canopy that we had set up, but really you could string it from tree to tree or connect it to your tent somehow. And it was just the perfect place to keep things off the ground, or after we would go swimming, we would hang up our swimsuits, or if things got wet in the rain, we were able to just hang them up to dry. Ooh, all this talking. Just not used to it. Tip number 9 is to use packing cubes and drawers to pack all of your clothing and toiletries. It's going to be easier to access everything in a stacked drawer, and it's also going to give you more room inside the tent. And then the packing cubes act as tiny drawers within each of the drawers, so kids know where to find their clothes to get themselves dressed. Tip number 10, make a dollar store run before your camping trip to get fun kids activities or extra supplies that you think you might need, but you don't want to invest a ton of money in. This is where we got our large clothespins. We got fun glow sticks for the kids. You could find coloring books, outdoor activities, bubbles, all kinds of things that will keep the kids excited and distracted at your campsite and entertained. But this way you don't have to spend a lot of money on it. This also will work great for organizational items, things for washing dishes, flashlights, shampoo if we're at the campsite, cheap flip-flops for walking around. Really anything that you're adding to your packing list specifically for camping, don't spend a ton of money, head to the dollar store. And my last tip is to have a good sense of humor about the whole trip. Have a great attitude, be willing to get out and explore not just your campsite, but the surrounding areas. Get out in nature and just really enjoy spending time as a family. Even if you have mishaps, like we did, where our car didn't start because we had kept the doors open and the battery died, just have a sense of humor about it. Really just use the time to grow closer as a family, because these are going to make the best memories that your kids are going to hang on to for the rest of their lives. So don't get overly stressed about making everything perfect for the first time or being some expert camper. Remember, all travel is just about being together as a family and making memories. I hope this helps as you plan your very first camping trip, or maybe your second or third camping trip with young kids and you're just feeling a little bit unsure. We've all been there, and it just takes some trial and error. So go out there and have some fun. If you want to look at the full blog post, I will link that below. And you can check out other videos to help plan your camping trip right here. I'll link them here. You can find me on Instagram at A Mom Explores, and my blog is also called A Mom Explores, so you can find me on either of those channels, and I look forward to connecting with you there. Until then, keep exploring.